Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, the Monday, February 10th edition of the Daily Pulse. I'm your host, Teddy Panos, coming to you from the 𝐿𝐿 Studios, joined today by the person who has become the face of the Lowell Sun, certainly the Sun column, their famous
or the Target
article in there.
I don't know.
Hey,
Pinata?
Target face, as long as they spell your name right and say it right. Melanie Gilbert is
good to be here,
joining us
Teddy.
here in the 𝐿𝐿 Studios.
Thanks for finally having me. I've been waiting for the invitation.
I know, it's been too long.
You know, Rita Mercier has sat in this chair. I mean, she's a legend. Come on.
A lot of famous people.
Lori Trahan. I mean, now I feel like I've arrived in Lowell.
Yeah, I think you arrived before that, but I'm glad to have you here. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to chat with Melanie about some things, and I have a personal plea. If you watched the Daily Pulse last week, I said I was going to plead with Melanie to do me a favor, and I'm going to get to that in a quick second. I just want to thank our sponsors of the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, of course, Real Estate Ray Booten, licensed realtor in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, certified appraiser in both of those states as well. So if you are looking to buy or sell a residential or commercial property, business, Real Estate Ray Booten is your man. Find him online, realestaterayBooten.com. Thank you as well to our friends at 𝐿𝐿. You see the signage all over the place. We're coming to you from the 𝐿𝐿 Studios. 𝐿𝐿 is the only health plan offering healthcare benefits exclusively to Massachusetts GIC members. At 𝐿𝐿, your whole health is their whole point. Thanks to 𝐿𝐿, thanks to Ray. We got some other sponsors to thank as well, but I want to get right to it here.
Can I interrupt you though?
Melanie, of course.
I just want to say, oh, thank you, Teddy. I just want to give a shout out to Ray Booten, because I've met him several times. He used to do the WCAP morning show, and he would bring in these, not on the days I was there, but he would bring in these fabulous breakfasts from Cody's.
Yeah, on Thursdays.
Yeah, and so if I was younger, I would definitely buy that place. So,
Cody's Market.
Yeah.
Plus the AP.
Cody, well, either. Maybe you can throw the one in with the other.
There you go.
But that is such a great little
deal.
I was driving down that street the other day. That's Broadway, right? No, wait, is that?
It becomes Salem.
Salem.
It's Market and turns into Salem.
That's right.
Up there by the
university.
And
I stopped because the sun was hitting the sign, and it's just so old school. You feel like you're in 19th century England or something when you see that sign.
And it pretty much opened up at that. It's over 100 years old. I believe now,
I mean, it's a real institution. So when I saw that Ray was repping that, I thought, wow, if only, another time. Maybe we should go into business, Teddy.
If we can just get there's not a lot of money in this media industry, though, unfortunately, right?
Well, you can offer beans. Well, you're, be the 𝐿𝐿, Cody's Market, 𝐿𝐿.
I like it.
All right.
I like it. So for folks who don't know you, as I said, you've really become the face of the Sun. You got the City of Lowell beat and the
because I'm a busybody.
City Hall beat and whatnot, and you wear a million other hats as well. Most of the features in the paper, you are writing. You guys have. There's 3 offhand that I know that work.
And then we have stringers, right?
Stringers, Aaron Curtis, who does a lot of the
crime,
social media crime stuff. But the job of a print reporter is so much more intense than it used to be. You're now your own photographer, right? Videographer, if you have to be. And besides having to go and meet the print deadline, you also have to make sure you get everything out on social media and whatnot. So it's a tough gig. How did you get so up to speed in a city like Lowell that can be complex politically with its history and whatnot? How'd you get so up to speed in that you didn't even come from anywhere near this area? You originally came from another great American city.
Well, Teddy, this is what I like to say. I came from Motown and I moved to Milltown. So, there are a lot of parallels. And I've said this before, is that I think one of the ways you come up to speed is that you drop in, and I'm not parachuting in, which I know is a big rank on some of our reporters, is that they parachute in. I don't really feel like I'm parachuting in because I feel like I've lived here, because there are a lot of parallels between Detroit and Lowell. We're on a river. I grew up on the Detroit River. I grew up right in downtown Detroit. I didn't grow up in the suburbs. I was downtown. We were blocks from, where the riot started. So, it's very gritty. Just like Lowell had the industrialization and then sort of cratered, Motown had the cratering of the auto industry, which needed more land. You can't build factories up.
Right.
You can only build them out. There was no more land in Detroit, so they go out to the suburbs, at that time were farmland or whatever. So it gutted the economy in a lot of ways. I mean, I think Lowell is well, I think Detroit is maybe 600,000 people, maybe. But
I was shocked when I learned that.
Yeah.
I always thought it was I thought it was like a Boston.
It was like 2 million
Atlanta, whatnot.
in the 50s, and then it dropped to 1 million, and now it's down to, yeah, there are huge swaths of land that are just vacant. And so, it's more spread out. It's much larger. I think it's like 100 acres versus what is Lowell, or not square miles. I think Lowell's 14 square miles.
Lowell's very tiny.
Yeah.
If you look at it.
But the point is that I come here and I feel like I'm walking from one door into another because it's my people, that whole blue collar, sort of up by your bootstraps, kind of rough and ready.
Yeah, see, I love to hear that. Because Detroit was at one point arguably the greatest American city, especially in the heyday of the automobile and the work and the production. And, Lowell in its heyday in the 1860s, it was kind of the heart of the Industrial Revolution.
Well, you hear about Hudson's in Detroit and Bon Marsh. In downtown.
The Bon Marché.
Yeah, so it's the same thing. A lot of the same. My grandmother, I brought you donuts today.
Thank you very much. My wife is going to curse you. I haven't touched one yet, honey. I promise. Yes.
It's got a lock on it.
Yeah.
But my grandmother owned a coffee and donut shop in downtown Detroit, right off of Grand Circus Park. And, just great memories of going down there and the bustling and, the cars and the buses and the people. And, but now it's like pretty much a ghost. Although I will say that there's probably a 5 to 10 block area in center, right downtown, that has been grown out.
I was going to say that I've read some stories of the kind of rebirth of Detroit, but you're saying it's a very
narrow
small footprint.
What I would equate it to, and again, this is using the parallel between where I grew up and where I now kind of call home professionally, is that it's like Hamilton Canal Innovation District. It's called Campus Martius in Detroit. And it was, they couldn't get anybody to come in there. And CompuWare, I guess, opened it for a while. And then Dan Gilbert, who's no relation, unfortunately, bought a bunch of stuff. And then they did Campus Martius, which is just this little pocket park. But they put in a skating rink. And it actually made me think of the motion that Councilor Corey Robinson made. He made it a year ago. And he made it again more recently to build a skating rink. And, they should just put it over there forget Lapoli. And forget all of them. They got a parking lot there. It's right off the main drag. It could be a destination. And when I first heard about Campus Martius and putting in a skating rink, I was not a believer. I thought, well, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Skating is expensive. It's cold. Not that people in Detroit aren't used to that. And we're a big hockey town.
Well, outdoor skating. People go to Rockefeller Center for that.
Oh my gosh, exactly. Yeah, and Frog Pond.
Now you got me thinking, but South Carmen, if that football field, right? Because the National Hockey League is now turning outdoor stadiums, baseball and football stadiums, into one-game winter things. But can Lowell set up a skating rink in South Carmen?
I guess they could. I mean, all you know is if you've ever flooded your backyard like I have, you just need 2x4s or 4x, and a hose. They could just run that from the garage.
It's interesting that you thought about it because Councilor Robinson has brought it up. It's been a motion that's been brought up multiple times way back to,
I think
Marty Laurie was the first one. He was talking about some.
Oh my gosh, that's going back. When is that?
Pawtucket Boulevard. He was served on the council, I think, 2009 to 2000.
Yeah, so you're looking at
somewhere in there.
15 years.
But I've heard it discussed potentially at the JFK Plaza. I've heard it discussed in a number of places. But you may be.
Oh, JFK Plaza, yeah. I would say I think HCID is that at Hamilton Canal or South Common. South Common is a little off the beaten path, and you don't really have parking there. So I mean, you'd have to really trek.
We could skate from the Gallagher terminal and that parking garage all the way
over. Yeah.
sled down the hill with your skates, and I like the way.
But I think I think what you need to create is a destination, and what we have are pockets of destinations. And if you have like a central talking point piece that becomes your destination, it could be really cool. Then you can have winter farmers markets, co-located. So I think that district is really beautiful, even with its weeds and barren landscape. It could really be something. So part of me just thinks, forget the hotels,
Just get the outdoor
things started up. Plenty of room.
All right. I've got a personal plea.
Oh, are we going to go there?
That I teased all last week on the show. I first want to thank our Inside Lowell Daily Pulse sponsors. Of course, Real Estate Ray Booten, licensed realtor, certified appraiser in Mass and New Hampshire. Find him online, realestaterayBooten.com. Our friends at WellPoint, we're here in the WellPoint studios at WellPoint. Your whole health is their whole point. Washington Savings Bank, banking that feels like home. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. TMI Properties, quality and value at every price point. Find your perfect space with TMI. Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and protection to Greater Lowell and Southern New Hampshire since 1925. Quick math in my head, 2025, 1925. That's a century. Great organization, but even better people that do a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Greater Lowell Community Foundation, improving the quality of life in Greater Lowell through impactful strategic philanthropy. Francis E. Prevention Insurance, the agency Greater Lowell has counted on since 1982. And by the Massachusetts Pirates, bringing all the hard-hitting action and excitement of arena football to the Mill City season opener, opening kickoff for the Pirates, March 21st. At the Tsongas Center. We're back with Melanie Gilbert from the Lowell Sun. I've dubbed you the face of the Lowell Sun right now.
How am I doing, Teddy?
You're doing fantastic.
All right,
You've gotten up to speed in just a couple of years, which is amazing.
Well, it took me a while. I would say the first year, I started in June of 2022. And I think the first year I was lost. You know, trying to cover that city council, like, what the heck, man? I do go back and I look at those articles and I think, wow, did I write that? Like, how did that come together? Because I do remember feeling like, what's going on here? My very first meeting was racism is a public
health crisis. Oh.
Yeah, and that was like wild. First it wasn't, and then it was. You know, Rita Mercier.
You should have seen the original one.
Oh, well, I read about it.
In 2020, that was really fun.
Right, and it was charged. Like, I thought we were just, Lowell was just this little sleepy, town on the water. And that meeting was wild. And that's when I thought, this is, because I didn't really have a beat yet. I was plugging in because Jake Vitale had moved up to the Sentinel Enterprise. That used to be his beat.
That's right.
And I was just plugging in as a human body to figure out what was going on because we had to have content, but not really sure what community I was going to cover. Like, it wasn't my choice whether I was going to be Chelmsford or wherever. And after that night, I said to Alana, who's my editor, this is where the action is. Like,
Do you regret that discussion?
No, well, when you say I'm the face of the Lowell Sun, I think one of the reasons why that's possible is not only because I'm comfortable here, even though I don't live here, is that I'm a busybody. So I have my hands in my thumb in every little pie, and it knits together. Like the story I did for yesterday's paper about the health van. These vans that's not a new idea. It's new for the homeless, but they're doing it in the schools as well. So there's this, and I can bring sort of that perspective. I didn't in that story yet. I'll do it when the van actually rolls out and say, oh, we're doing this over here and now we're doing it here and this is awesome. And, the whole city is getting coverage. You don't have to walk into a clinic. But I think if you cover the Board of Health and then the City Council and then the planning, the land use boards, and then, it all begins to fit together. Yeah,
and that's how you get caught up quickly. And I God bless your dedication, because if there's a hot button meeting issue with the planning or zoning, the ADU thing, I'll start to get into it. But otherwise, those things can be boring. And yet there you are, the health meetings, and every week you manage to churn out an interesting little snippet from a meeting that I wouldn't know about until you put it out there.
Exactly my point. So, like, I go to the Board of Health and they're talking about Kratom, which was a runaway. We track all our metrics, and that was a huge mover in our internal tracking, and not just locally. So there's a big community outside of Lowell that's tracking that, because that was an ordinance. We were one of two cities or communities in the Commonwealth to do a Kratom ordinance, banning Kratom. So, I personally found that, super interesting. Then bird flu, I'm tracking that. I drive by the Beaver Street Bridge to see if there are any dead ducks in the water.
You've got to get a light. So.
I'm on my bird flu watch.
So my personal plea to you.
Okay.
As someone who grew up reading the Sun, get the ink stains on my fingers along with the Globe and the Herald. That's what you did if you're a 59-year-old person. And the Sunday column was must read. Even if you didn't subscribe to the Sun,
you went out and got that? Really? Back in the day?
My Monday morning radio show was basically, my show prep was read the column on Sunday morning and then just go. on Monday morning, and everybody would come in.
The old column used to do your prep work for you. Huh?
Exactly.
Oh, I see where this is going.
It was phenomenal. You make my life easy.
Okay,
It's all
all
about
right.
me, Melanie. But can we please make the column great again? And then, give an ironic plea.
Greater. You mean greater, because it's already great, but you just want it greater.
I don't want to be critical, but
Lay it out, Teddy.
I get enough.
Tell me how you really feel.
I get enough TDS on social media, between Facebook.
I learned
Twitter
that term from you
Instagram.
today.
Trump deranged
I
syndrome.
didn't know that.
Can we at least,
Well,
look, I know Prue's having a field day on Facebook with TDS. I know you haven't on Facebook.
I'm not
have
really
you?
on Facebook
Yeah.
because I do think it's kind of toxic.
It
and
can
I
be.
feel like I have to separate myself from that because I'm a very sensitive person.
But I'm worried about Prue. I'm worried about Peter. But as the person who writes the lead part of the column, can we just go back to that those little tidbits here, the snippets that you discern as somebody who knows some of the inside stuff, right? You follow this stuff. You start to hear the whispers, and the column was great because in its heyday, Chris Scott and Jen Myers.
Well, those
and Jim
guys,
Campini
yeah.
would throw it in there.
Yeah.
And that's why everybody had to read it because you're like,
Yeah, because it was like Peyton Place.
and they give their gift ideas every Christmas season, which would make everybody lose their minds.
You know what? I think, it took me a while to figure out I'm not really good at gossip. And people don't tell me gossip. So what does that say about me? But I see your point. I think it's become a little nerdy in a way, and more Meet the Press than Peyton Place. Maybe there's a nice healthy mix. But it's only really been probably since December, right? That you've noticed this?
Yeah, since January 20th.
For sure.
Almost.
Well, it's like a fire hose
100%.
of stuff coming out of the Oval. It's like it's pants on fire kind of stuff. So,
But you did it. But see, even that, you can scratch that itch, right?
Okay.
Yeah, we need to tell everybody how bad what Donald Trump is doing. But
well,
tie
it's
it
not always
locally, right?
bad. It's just provocative. We don't know if it's going to be bad or good.
Well, I don't know. There's judgment passed where anyone who voted for Donald Trump is
Oh, well, it's people today. Well,
or
okay.
a Nazi or whatever.
Right.
It's
A spawn of the
gets
devil. Right.
Or maybe we just don't like big government, but whatever the case may
Well,
be.
these are what I think he's good at is blowing up stuff. And I think some of the stuff needs to be blown up. For instance, he got rid of the penny today.
Which I thought it cost 2 cents. You told me it
I
cost
think it's 3.5 cents to make a penny. And
that's crazy economically.
Exactly. But we have this, we're sort of a country that has a romantic attachment to stuff. And a penny is one of them. You save your pennies. It's all embedded in our language. What are we going to do now without a penny? Penny saved is a penny earned. Not anymore. Now you have to save a dime. As long as they still make those, when they do those sales, $3.99, because now it's going to have to be $4.
Yeah, what are the gas stations don't just do pennies, they do fractions. Of
Right,
pennies,
right. Yeah, and 9 cents.
$2.89 and 9 cents.
Yeah, and
right?
now they're going to have to do $3.90. Like that's not as sexy, right?
Nickel candy doesn't sound as good as
No,
penny candy.
if you find a penny, pick it up all day long. You'll have good luck. The whole world is going to spin out of control, with not having a penny.
And what
But
if you're named Penny?
well, there you go.
Do you all of a sudden lose your name? Do you get written out by executive order?
It's interesting. So it's one thing to blow up stuff. It's a whole nother thing to reinvent.
Okay.
The judgment for me on him is out. I don't, you have to have disruptors. He really does remind me of King Henry VIII. King Henry VIII blew up. Are you Catholic? No, you're Greek Orthodox.
I'm Greek unorthodox. Is
Unorthodox.
How I describe myself.
I like that.
The Orthodox don't want me part of their religion either.
So they, Martin Luther came out with his, 95 theses, or as my brother would, say 95 feces. And because he married a Catholic woman, and, he was a traitor to his religion. But he just, I think King Henry came in and said, screw you, Catholic Church. I'm marrying this harlot Anne Boleyn, and I'm going to divorce my Catholic queen and take her to leave it.
And I'm the king. I can do whatever I want.
I can do whatever I want. And he seized all the churches and their wealth, and he double dog dared them, and it changed the course of history.
Ooh, I like that. If we seize the wealth in the Vatican, we could do a lot with that.
Well, he's
It's like
seizing,
U.S. aid on steroids.
he's not doing it against a church. He's doing it against the government. The church actually owned the monasteries and the churches and all that gold. And he just sent his soldiers in and took it all because England was broke, and he thought, oh, so you don't know.
Give Donald Trump any ideas, Melanie.
Well, true. And so
be
that's
careful.
why I say the verdict, the jury is out. He is a disruptor, there's no question. And that keeps things spicy. But whether he can be a reinventor, I don't know. You know, Henry eventually reinvented the church, the Anglican church, which is now an offshoot, Episcopal and the whole thing. So, you know, and England is Protestant, Anglican to this day because of it. Same thing. We throw the tea in the harbor. That's why we drink coffee. Actually, this is, yeah.
The Boston Tea Party, which was the original insurrection,
right,
in the United States,
right,
of America.
Exactly. So you know I don't know that we'll see how this all plays out. You know, in his day, Henry was going to be excommunicated. There was a real threat that France was going to invade and take over the kingdom. You know, they were going to do a holy crusade against England, and it didn't happen. So sometimes, you know, I think Trump has thrown down a lot of markers. But back to the column. I think he's a captivating figure. He's the only story.
100%.
He's the only story right now. And so the column, I'm kind of struggling because January is slow anyway. You know, a lot of people, the boards and stuff haven't really picked up steam yet. And I'm not really tuned into the gossip. So if you have a good tip, you know, let me know. I think you raised a good point. You can get a little bit too navel gazing and not understand that sometimes having sort of a broadsheet for the, you know, everyday people, you know, just.
But you were, yesterday's column was a perfect example. You were able to do it. You took the motion on the city council agenda, which was we need the Lowell police to tell us what the immigration policy is and how they enforce it in light of all these ICE raids in communities. And you tied that in. So you work in the Trump national immigration debate, but you brought it home.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So it can be done.
I'll be more mindful of that. That's a good point. No, it's a good point.
But, you know, the column is still the best reason to read the Lowell Sun. No disrespect to you guys, but for me, for the political junkies, the bubble, as Jerry Nutter calls us, the column
that's interesting.
is must-read
newspaper. Okay, well, I'll pay attention to that. When John McDonough, who runs City Life, and I've appeared on his show several times, he had the same complaint on Friday. So clearly, you know,
all us old guys feel the same way, don't we?
Well, we say in the newspaper business, 1 time is an accident, 2 times is a coincidence, 3 times is a story. So if you pay somebody to tell me this a 3rd time, then I will change the column.
I'll put you in touch with some of my buddies. But on the immigration issue, people are scared out there, right? You're talking to people in the community, and my point of view is there are people who are being scared and are being panicked by some of the rhetoric coming from DC that I don't think have anything to worry about. To me, I think a lot of the hot air.
Well, that's your privilege talking.
Maybe.
You don't have to look over your shoulder.
My Greek privilege. My parents came here legally. They followed a process. They came here legally. And I was actually born here, so even though I may lose my birthright citizenship.
You're an anchor baby?
I always tease my parents and my sister particularly, because my sister came here when she was 2 years old.
I won't report you, Teddy.
That I was the anchor baby. But they came legally. And I will tell you, none of my mother's family was allowed to come here to live. One of my mother's nieces wanted to go to college, and she was rejected.
Oh, my.
My brother-in-law, who was also a Greek immigrant, when he got married, we needed to try to get some political connections to get his parents over here for my sister's wedding.
It's not easy.
His sister, because she was a college-age student, was not allowed to come. So you can see.
How'd your parents do it? They just got a lottery?
Well, no, but back in those days, they had a sponsor. So literally they had, and by the way, if you follow every other country's immigration laws, you will see that that's common, including one of the most left places around Canada. You need to show that you have a sponsor. You need to show that you have a job.
Right.
You need to show that you speak the language, or maybe it's languages in Canada. And you also need to come with a clean police record. That's the immigration process that my parents went to not that long ago, 1961. And when you see that and you went through those hoops and got rejected or had other people rejected, loved ones, you kind of get a little ticked off when people are like, I'm just going to come over the border and then I'm going to throw a hissy fit if someone even mentions like, this is wrong. And then put them aside. I really think that they're okay. I think people who are here who are productive members of the society, who've been working or whatever, I think at some point we're going to move to trying to find a way, give them a path. They'll probably have to pay some kind of a fine or some kind of restitution.
Well, that's DACA.
But there will be a path to citizenship.
Right.
But for right now, it seems that ICE is focusing on murderers, rapists, other serious criminals. Can we at least stop fighting that?
Right. I agree with you. I totally agree with my grandparents came over because they had a sponsor, and my grandmother became a naturalized citizen. Back then, I don't know what it took. I never thought to ask her what it took to become but it took about 10 years.
It's not,
It's not easy.
There's a reason why people lose their minds when you find out that immigrants are getting benefits, they're getting free healthcare. None of that was on the table. And I believe it's still to this day against federal law, which will get really messy if the Trump administration starts trying to crack down on that. You know, I said this with when I had Greg Pappas on a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, how is Greg?
He's fantastic.
Good.
He's
good.
He went to school with my sister.
Living the dream.
He is. Although I think he's kind of bored. He's doing the media circuit, but. Oh God, I lost my train of thought there.
With Trump, with the, we don't know what he's going to do next on immigration.
Yeah, I mean, it's so in Massachusetts, we saw that they misused COVID unemployment funds, right? And Charlie Baker. And now Maura Healey and the rest of the electeds have to figure out a way to repay the federal government $2 billion.
Right.
What if Donald Trump comes in and says, hey, you're not supposed to give welfare money because a lot of that money emanates from Washington, D.C.
Right.
That wasn't supposed to go to illegals. You now owe us, and I guarantee you that number through the years is a lot bigger than the $2 billion COVID unemployment money that was wasted. So it's, laws are on the books for a reason. I think we should go back to following them. And if you want to challenge them, by all means, there's the court system, do it. But you can't just say, I'm not going to follow immigration laws. I'm not going to follow these laws, but I'll follow these laws.
It's hard to know what the law is sometimes. And I think there needs to be clarity around what does it take to get to be a legal citizen of this country. I mean, I know my brother-in-law came here from Colombia, got into the country on a student visa, which you're not a citizen.
Right.
You have to be in school, graduates from school, gets a job, then he moves to a H-1 visa. Uses that. His company was Novartis, which is the huge pharmaceutical.
Oh, yeah.
So they apply for him to get the green card, which took 10 years. You're not a citizen with a green card. You just have another level of protection.
But you can stay in the country.
But you can stay in the country. Yeah.
See, that needs to be expedited, especially for people who work in the STEM fields, which we need. We have a massive shortage in America of people as we're moving into robotics and AI. There's common ground to fix immigration. We just got to stop fighting over the stupid things, such as don't hide somebody who's raped a 13-year-old girl. Don't let them out the back door of a courtroom, because now the anger from that is going to spill over to people who are. It's going to be hard to find allies, right? So
it's one thing to blow things up. It's a whole nother thing underneath that blowing up to usher in something new. And I don't see the something new yet. And that's where I get concerned about just blowing up stuff. He's a really good disruptor. But what's the plan, man?
My hunch is you'll see it before the end of this.
All right.
I think you'll see it. I really do. I'm hopeful. Some people think I'm a nut. But what'd you think of Chief Hudon's report, by the way, which will be revealed in front of the council on Tuesday? It's in the council agenda.
It's one of the best descriptions I've read, honestly.
I texted him and I said to him, bravo, that's a perfect report.
It was. And that's what I was looking for from UMass Lowell when I wrote about them last week in the column about when they sent out a campus community newsletter letter to the community just saying, oh, if you see ICE, call the campus police. No, that's not reassuring. So, and I feel like that's not saying that you're trying to dodge ICE or that you're just, information is power. Just give people information because immigration is complicated.
Certainly is.
And I thought he laid it out very cleanly.
Yeah, I did too. And folks, we've you had it in the column yesterday. It's on InsideLowell.com as well. That, by the way, the city's policy as it relates to ICE has been the city's policy since April 8th of 2015.
Yeah, almost 10 years.
10 years.
Right.
Presidents Obama, Trump twice, and Biden, same policy. Lowell Police has never changed it. And it's pretty common sense. If you come to us looking for help, we don't care what your status is. We're not going to ask.
Right.
However, if ICE asks us to assist in apprehending a dangerous criminal, they take an oath. Police officers
Right.
do, as do UMass Lowell campus police
Right.
officers too. You take an oath to uphold the laws and the Constitution. So you start fighting it. Now you put yourself in potentially being, you know.
So if you're a murderer whose car gets stolen, don't go to the Lowell police department.
Just,
And an immigrant murder.
just you know,
Illegal
let it be. Go steal
Let it go.
another car to make up for it.
Oh, right. If you're a Grand Theft Auto person, right.
By the way, what day this week are you running the column on how or your article on how the homeless camping ban has actually worked?
Well, yeah, you know, I don't know.
I'm trying to push your buttons a
no,
little
no,
bit.
oh,
And you respond so calmly. Cut it out.
because they're good questions.
Tell me to shut up.
No, I think it's, these are contentious issues and, well, not contentious, they're complicated issues, and there can be a lot of ways to get to no, and there can be an equal number of ways to get to yes. Apparently, they got to a good yes. They had like 36 people that were taken off, who are out of Lowell, or in housing. It's hard. The numbers, I don't have the full look at the numbers, like what that means.
But for folks who don't know what we're talking about, Melanie wrote an article Thursday or Friday, I believe.
Yep.
Highlight, and again, from watching these Board of Health meetings and whatnot, but you found out that Lowell's homeless head count, which every community has to do every year, has dropped from 286 to 250, and the number of people who have a roof over their head, be it a shelter or hotel, is at 200.
Right.
Out of those 250. So 80% of the homeless have a roof over their head.
Right.
And you reported that last week.
That came out of the Hunger and Homeless Commission, which is another little rinky-dink meeting, but
God bless you for sitting through those things.
but you know,
live or on tape.
yeah, and that's where you get these little nuggets. So, that's good news. They bucked the trend, because you probably saw in the Herald or in the Globe that numbers of homeless has gone up like 25%.
Yeah, well, I wonder what happens in the other communities that also passed camping or anti-camping.
I don't know. That's a good.
I wonder if they're seeing a similar positive development as Lowell,
Right.
or are they following the national?
But it's come at tremendous cost, as the city manager Tom Golden spoke to. We can't continue to put this kind of effort into that kind of margin. I mean, it's really tough. It's expensive and it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's dominated the political discourse of council meetings, but also the financial, because you're tying up police, fire to some degree, code people, and certainly your EMTs and that.
DPW picking up trash. I mean, it's all the way up and down the municipal chain. But what's going to be interesting, the funding probably is going to be cut. Those kind of grants, the community development block grants, which a lot of those. Alternative House, Elliott Church, CTI, they all depend on that money. That's through HUD. So we'll see if that gets stable or level funded. I don't know. And then we're also going to see when the weather changes, whether that's going to have a significant difference.
Right, that's the real test of South Common, right, which was ground zero.
That's nitpicking and that's raining on the parade. The real story was the numbers dropped. And I've been super critical in my reporting, like, get your game on. And they did.
You've been, and that's one of the people, what's Melanie's issue there? Why is she like taking the side of the homeless versus the side of the business or the residents?
Well, because that's my job.
Who are dealing with it.
That's right. It's my job as the underdog. And
you're saying despite not having orange hair, you're a little bit of a provocateur yourself?
Maybe I'm a disruptor.
You have been, which is a good thing.
But I did propose, I am in favor of the ice skating rink, so I don't just blow things up.
Yeah, we can't allow camping on the ice skating rink.
No, true.
So one thing I do like that you do is you do put a face on the homelessness issues, because they are people. They are somebody's son. They are somebody's daughter, etc.
And a lot of the stories are, really heartbreaking. And they're by the grace of God we all go. It could be a health crisis. It could be a tragic death, that just tipped them over the balance or over the line. And
was it you or Aaron Curtis who did the story on
Gambit? That was Aaron.
That was Aaron.
Yeah.
Okay. It was, again, I drive that road all the time, and I knew exactly who he was.
Yeah.
I didn't know his backstory.
He's harmless.
For the foster, like, you get caught up in that foster care system and whatnot. But
they have a phrase for that: the foster care to homelessness pipeline. So,
100% exists.
Foster care to jail, foster care to pregnancy.
Yep.
Like nothing, it doesn't seem like there are a lot of good outcomes. My kids are adopted from foster care, and they're both in college. And I think it's like 3% of the kids who are adopted from foster care go to college. So they're like kicking the odds. But, it takes a lot. And I'm not saying that for me, I'm saying that for them, is to turn that, they were older, they were 4 and 6, they weren't little kids, they came with a backstory and a history, and they knew, who their real parents were. And I just think, so what's the alternative? You leave them in a situation where they will probably fail because there's this generational poverty and generational, hurt. And we see that with Lowell Housing Authority. That's not just newcomers. When I did that story about Lowell Housing Authority, the homeless sleeping in the basement, I was talking to people who were kids in that system, who were children of people who were in that system, who now had children who are in that system, and our grandparents' children in that system. Like, that's not working.
Right.
And I think this is where Trump, whether you love him or you hate him,
he actually mentioned that.
Did he?
People should be in public housing for 2 years. It shouldn't become
or at least
a generational thing.
Or maybe one generation. Like, it made me think, and then I did that story, and this is what I talk about, going to your compliment to me about having a pretty good grasp. Then I go to the courthouse and I interview Arlene Boone, who retired after 41 years. She says she was there long enough to see 3 generations of people come through the courthouse. Like, that's wrong. So not only do you have it on the social welfare side where it's not working, you have it on the criminal justice side. It's not working. It's not just go after, defund social welfare or defund the police. We have to rethink the whole thing because it's not. We have to reinvent it. And he's really good at disrupting. He's going to slash the programs.
Money that's no longer going to 700 or 7,000 media entities, across the world can be used to solve this. But the Gambit column was interesting to me because while it put a face and a story about why this guy's on the streets, it also, for me, highlighted the fact that I think the services are there. Yeah. Because he talked about, okay, so look, is a foster home a great thing? No, but it put a roof over his head. He also talked about getting, having, is it schizophrenia or whatever? But he was in mental health facilities. So they're there. He talked about being offered housing, and he eventually left the housing voluntarily. Right. And then when he was told, well, you can always have a shelter, he said, I don't do shelters. So there were these folks who are crying about the lack of services and criticizing politicians. I think the services are there. Now, could they be beefed up? Could they be made better? Of course. You shouldn't cut mental caseworkers in half, as Maura Healey has proposed.
I know,
but
that's an epic fail. I don't know who thought that was a good idea.
Nobody. Thankfully, I think she's rethinking that. But the safety net is there. The challenge is, how do you get people to take advantage of it when sometimes they don't want to for whatever reason, whether it's an addiction issue that forces it, that doesn't let them make a good judgment. Or in the case of somebody like Gambit, who says he's clean, but says, I don't do shelters. Right. So is homelessness the answer if you don't do shelters?
Right, because then they're in the public space. And then it's beyond just their personal wishes, because now they're involving us in their decision making, which is, a part of a civil society. We all have to sort of meet on a common ground, and that common ground might not be a campsite, in the middle of the town square, let's say, or the city square. Yeah, Gambit's an interesting character. I know another woman who I did a story on, Carolyn Zanoni. Yes. And she was an alcoholic living in a tent. I mean, it was just, I'm not saying anything out of school here. She gave it to me on record. And she got housing. But she's way out in Haverhill, away from her people, and she's lonely. She's held it together for a whole year. But it's tenuous because you're disconnected. You're not around. And I think there's some improvements that can take place in that whole model. But it's like that old, I don't know if it was a Syrian or parable. It takes one idiot to throw a pebble in a well. It takes 100 wise men to pull it out. And that's what we're looking at. That's government. Your government responds to the one idiot, or the one disenfranchised, or the one hungry, or the one, and I think what Trump is trying to say, why does it take 100 people? I don't know. That's the way it works. But if you get rid of those 100 people, how many other people are going to be impacted? So I think there's room for improvement. I think there probably is a lot of waste and corruption or whatever, where there's contracts that are being cut that don't make sense.
You're almost being sympathetic. This is a far cry from the column here.
Well, no. I think in the column I was focusing particularly on. Oops, sorry, Teddy. Focusing particularly on immigration. That blow it up, scare people out of their bleeding minds. But then what? We need immigrants.
You need a plan.
And we need a plan. So what's the plan? That's
Good
it.
question. My take is whatever's been happening the last 4 years, just bringing people in indiscriminately, taking people in case of the Haitians and stuff, literally you're flying them in, you create this app on a phone. So immigration becomes as easy as a phone app.
Yeah.
You fly them into Logan Airport and then they're sleeping in the lobby because they don't have anywhere to put them. I mean, and then so now they're here, right? There's 600 people or so staying at the Inn and Conference Center.
Right.
Where are they going to go? Where's their housing going to go? Because that will eventually go away.
Well, more immediately,
where are they going to live?
More immediately, President Trump has taken away the TPS, temporary protected status, from Venezuelans. And I think there are about 200 over there that are Venezuelan. They're just going to be packed up and they're coming for them eventually. I think they have 30 days to make other plans. Either they can take themselves home or ICE is going to come to I'm guessing, I don't know this, is going to come to those shelters and take those people because they know exactly where they are. And Venezuela said, yeah, we'll take them back. But is that really what we want to do? I don't know. I know we can't afford it. They're tough questions.
They really are.
Because they were promised temporary protection.
Yep.
But
I feel bad for those
right.
folks. They were literally brought here on a United States government flight.
Right. And they were guaranteed
now,
protection through, I think, April 2026, but he's rescinded it. So we don't know what could have happened, but we know what's going to happen. And that's what I'm trying to say. We all know what's going to happen. The penny's going away.
Is it? But there might be a Save the Penny campaign that
just like Save Smith
can
Baker.
we melt the copper and sell it as copper? They're stealing copper wires.
Exactly. But what's the alternative? Like, do we have an alternative, or are we just saying all of this just has to go away? And that I'm uncomfortable with.
We should have an alternative. Before we wrap up, local funding. There was also something in the column about, was it in the column or was it a side piece? I forget now because I read most of it online instead of getting the ink stains on my fingers. But Chelmsford's got a.
I know. I was surprised. That was a good story by Peter. You should have Peter on. He's really doing a good job.
I'm gonna reach out to him, get him on here.
I was shocked at Chelmsford. I mean, I didn't see that coming, but I think it's going to be tight. Just little things like CDBG money. I think we get, I can't remember off the top of my head, but let's say we get $600,000. If that's cut, that's a huge hole. I know that Elliott Church, for instance, gets 30,000 of that. Alternative House gets money. Like that really, that's the underneath. That's the slipstream stuff. That's not going to rise to the top. So I'm worried because I think foreign students, that's what I wrote about UMass Lowell. Foreign students, it's not easy to come here as a foreign student. You have to show that you have money to pay that tuition.
Which is much, if you think of tuition for your sons and daughters in America is pricey.
Yeah, I get to pay.
International, cha-ching.
I get to pay that quarterly. They have to show that they have it right then and there.
Yeah.
I think that's going to hurt UMass Lowell. I think some people might opt out thinking, well, why am I paying to be scared or vulnerable? Or like the Venezuelans, I thought we had a deal and now we don't have a deal. Now I have to go home. So people might opt out. And that's certainly a challenge.
A lot of challenges out there in the communities. Have to wrap it up here.
Okay.
I have a haircut appointment I have to run to. And
you were looking a little scruffy.
This is.
I was going to say something, but
my wife says all the grays come out the longer it gets. So, but we got to do this more often.
I would love it.
You willing to come back?
I would love it.
Semi-regular basis, and I won't have as tight a schedule.
And I'll make sure the column is more,
that's my personal view. Let's make the column great again. Come up with your own title for it. We don't want to get,
Column is great, Teddy. Greater.
We'll restore it to even its past glory.
Well, it's good to hear that people are reading, so I appreciate that.
That's the signature. I wake up on Sunday morning and I go right to Twitter X and I scroll through.
Are you still on Twitter X?
100%. That's where all the news is happening.
Yeah, well, you're right. I learned about the Boston bombing off of Twitter. I mean, Twitter had that. That's how I booked out of that city. I took the water taxi and got home before they shut everything down.
Oh.
Well, they had already shut stuff down, but they didn't shut down the water taxi. So that's your Homeland Security at work. So I could have been on that boat with those terrorists and nobody would have been the wiser. You just picked up that little phone and said,
"Interesting.
Meet me at the North Wharf." And they did for $1. Anyway.
There's a lot of little connections to that.
The Boston bombing?
To the Boston bombing, unfortunately.
It's a really, really awful thing. Okay, so... you have my number.
We got lots to talk about. Let's do this on a regular basis. And we're going to bring Peter in as well.
You're not as scary as people say you are.
I'm really just a teddy bear. I haven't asked, but at least when you come in here, I'll be polite.
All right, I can go with that. We can roll with it.
Once I turn off the microphones and the cameras, I'm gonna let you know what I really think. Just kidding. I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank all of you for tuning in as well to the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse. Another week of the Daily Pulse, kicking off with Melanie Gilbert from the Lowell Sun. We'll have School Superintendent Liam Skinner here. Real Estate Ray Booten will join us later in the week. And on Friday, we'll have a special Valentine's show. My friend Danielle McFadden, Madam President from the Greater Lowell Chamber of Commerce, will join us. We'll grill her on her stances for the Lowell Public Schools, as she is a school committee candidate. And then we'll devolve into the usual goofiness that her and I get into. But we appreciate you folks joining us. It's the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse. Inside Lowell, as we like to say. If Lowell is your home, this is your place. Until next time, stay safe and warm, everybody.